right, Melissa, I feel like I have to start with you and ask a little bit about the creative process behind this, how this started, when this started. So how did this idea come about for Monarch to start?
So, hello. Thank you guys for coming. So I had worked on a prior project at Fox that did not go, as sometimes happens in television, apparently. And it was a really good creative experience, really good working with the team. And one of the executive producers and I sat down together to talk about what we could do next. And she said, I think Fox is interested in something in the area of country music. And I was like, oh my God, I'm from Maryland. I grew up having musicals at my house. My dad played guitar. And from there, before we got up from that lunch, I said, what if the Romanov dynasty were reimagined as a family of country stars in Texas? And she was like, that sounds cool. So that was in early 2019.
Okay.
I was a young woman.
Some things happened between then and now.
A few things have happened.
Yeah. And then for you, how did you kind of get into this? How did you come on board? Because you've had quite the career. We can say that easily.
He came because we begged.
Well, I worked on a show called Glee with Fox that did pretty well.
You may have heard of it.
What? I'm sorry, I've never heard of it. Was it?
Yeah, it did okay. And
Was
so
that a
obviously,
musical?
no, there was no music.
Was it on YouTube?
I don't think YouTube existed when I started that show.
MySpace.
Which is actually true, I think.
Oh my God, yeah.
This was when we still downloaded music. Wow. So they obviously had this musical, and they called me, not knowing that I actually started my music career in Nashville and cut my teeth there as a songwriter and producer. So it was like, wow, yeah, let's do it, because I get to kind of go back to my roots and bring all my friends back in that I kind of grew up working with in Nashville, and yeah, it just made a lot of sense for me.
Yeah. And then Beth, what about you? Because
finally,
again, you've had a killer career so far. I'm curious why this was the right project for you now.
It was COVID, and it was like the music industry was feeling like really bleak, and I mean, we were all feeling scared to death for our jobs, I'm sure. So you were like, oh my God, we're fucked. And that's not in the TV show. We can't say God, but I heard that there was a TV show about country music, and I grew up in Arkansas. My nephew Ian is here right now from Arkansas. Welcome him. He's never been to Austin. And I told you I was just gonna talk about me the whole time. But
that's what we're here for.
So I tried out, I was like, oh my God, I grew up going to honky tonks with my dad, and my there was I had a boogie woogie piano player in my family. I grew up in country, around country music. So they were like, will you try out? And I was like, first they were like, we need a fat lesbian country singer. And I was like, can do. Can't consider it done. And so I auditioned 4 times. And then finally, 2 weeks before the show was going to go, they were like, you got it. And I was like, you bet I did. No, not really. I was like,
never
I
a
thought
doubt. There was never a doubt.
It was no, it was not. It was a doubt. And they probably regret it. But that's how it happened. And then 4 auditions later, I finally got it. And
Was it 4?
It was 4. But it was COVID too, so I was just like, this better work out, because I'm so screwed.
Some of it was cast relationship stuff. It wasn't
chemistry.
So somebody didn't like me on the cast. That's funny.
No. I mean, it's let's see if this.
You're the one we
I'm
measured.
kidding.
everyone
I'm
else
kidding.
against.
I'm kidding. No, and also it's fine. I mean, it's television. It's that's the other thing. You don't think you can't take things personally. You're just like, I don't what am I gonna do? But I was just you're actually, it hurt my feelings. You took it personally for me. But yeah, so I was just like, oh my God, please, I really, really wanted it, and I'm a punk rocker and I was just like, I usually don't care about anything, but I really wanted to be in this show really, really bad,
What did you sing in your audition, and what song did you sing? I assume singing was a big part of it.
I did Fancy,
Nice.
the Bobby Gentry version.
Okay.
And then I did Valerie, the Amy Winehouse version.
Not the Glee version?
The pardon?
Not the Glee version?
Isn't that the only version? What are we talking
Isn't
about?
it the Zootans that wrote it? Oh my God, it's such a hipster. It's so embarrassing. I'm like, actually, it came out on a 7-inch in '98. So
Adam, I have to ask you about the process of getting these covers. I mean, you have a lot of experience with this, but with this show specifically, what was that process like? Was it constantly reaching out to artists? Was that just the struggle of that? Like, kind of explain that and getting the rights to these.
I think the artists are pretty receptive for the most part. I think, money talks at the end of the day. There's some artists that we already know are very precious and we won't even go there. So just from years of experience.
who are they?
Gossip, I heard, are impossible.
That's a joke you won't get.
That's her band. So, Garth actually historically is extremely difficult. But that happens to be the one song he didn't write. And that's a little trick there. And I knew that. So I was like, let's do that song. Plus, you were all singing along, which is exactly the reaction I wanted. Thank you. That's why I picked it. And then Trace was like, and I want to sing it lower than anyone ever has before, which he did. And he said, Garth, suck it. So, but the process, it's really about the writers, what story we're trying to tell. It has to make sense for the story or it just lands flat in a show. It has to fit the person singing it, which is also very tough. And especially early on in a series before you really know, before I knew Beth really well, like I do now, it's hard to find the song. Like, I don't know what they can sing. I barely met these people. Now we're picking these songs, and they're not. It's one thing to do gossip, right? Do your own thing that you wrote that's perfect for your voice. It's another thing. Hey, go do this Faith Hill song.
I learned what a glottal was.
Huh?
I learned what a glottal was.
Yeah, glottal. Yeah, something everyone should know. Yeah, glottal. Yeah.
Please share
Do
what it is.
Glottal.
I don't remember.
She learned and then forgot.
I should say I learned there is a thing called a glottal.
Yeah.
What is a glottal? You do a glottal.
I can't do a glottal. We digress. But yeah, it's starts with the writing, the story, what fits the person, and then what songs I know we can achieve and get and do a cool version of.
So were there a lot of songs when you were writing, like, okay, I want this part, I want this part, and then he was like, no, or yes.
I loved all her ideas.
Like?
There were certain songs that are so meaningful and important to me that I just wanted them. And they fit with the story, and they fit with the arc, and they fit with the emotion that I felt when conceiving of it and writing it. And there was never something that was like super important that you didn't make work. There wasn't.
What was the most important one you think?
Nasty, Jen Jackson? No? Okay.
That would have
That's
been
not in the
bad.
show. Just a joke.
I sent him
Inside
a lot
joke,
of
sorry.
texts with like crazy ideas that didn't always happen. But he always listened. And you appreciate my crazy. We all, I think, appreciate each other's crazy, which was a big part of the magic.
You have to.
There really are no bad ideas, I think, when you're in a creative process and collaborating, because even the craziest idea leads you to a good one. In the end, it pushes you to think outside the box. And so I have always been like, throw it at me, like whatever it is, and I'll tell you if it won't work, but I'm gonna at least try and see. Yeah.
So what were some of those important ones in your life that you wanted to incorporate?
Can I say songs? Am I supposed to say songs?
I think we can.
Well,
yeah.
Okay. Well, so I'm so nervous.
think of a
I
few.
want you to experience it fresh when you watch it, and I feel like the songs being a surprise are so fun. But here's what I will say.
I'll anticipate it more. Come on.
I am a woman of a certain age who loves country music, and my era was like those power women in the 90s and 2000s. And so you are going to see a lot of amazing reinvention of those songs, in addition to, Garth and amazing, and then incredible originals that we should talk about. But those were, representing those women was really important to me.
How Do I Live is one of them, isn't it?
How Do I Live is one of them. Yes, and I'm not giving anything away because you just saw it. It was, and that's a hard song. It's a hard song.
It was really hard. Yeah.
Remember when everybody was like, Leanne Rhymes is going to be, she's like the new Patsy Cline. And it was like, no, she's not. I mean, she's a great singer, but she's not, she doesn't sound anything like Patsy Cline.
Right.
It was just so weird. Anyway.
Well, Beth, for you, when you were, sent, okay, we really want to do How Do I Live? So I know that there was a lot of, what can she sing? What can't she? What doesn't work for her voice? For you, were there any that you were like, I don't know if I can do this, or I want to make sure I can pull this off the right way?
For me, the fun thing about it was that I've been in this one certain band for like literally since I was 18. So I'm 41. How many years is that? 23 years. So I've been doing this one thing for so long, and you think you know your voice, you think you know yourself, and then like I worked with his brother a lot, and there was a lot of like rethinking the way that I thought of myself as a singer. It's really funny. Like one of the coolest things that Alex, your brother, said to me when we were in the studio was, he was like, "You're not Beth, though." You know, and I was because I was struggling, and I was like, I don't know how to hit this. I don't know what you want. You want it cleaner, or you want it this? Because I'm used to just screaming and getting away with it. But like, it was more like he was like, "You're not Beth. You're playing a part." And I was like, "Oh my God, I got it." So I had to find Gigi's voice instead, and like abandon almost everything that I thought about this thing that came out of my body naturally. And so that was really, really interesting and really hard. And like in the beginning, it was super hard because I was just like, I'm not a choir, you know, I don't know how to read music. I don't understand music terminology. I don't get it. And he was using words like glottal. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And so our sessions would take like the first couple of songs took like 6 and 7 hours. And that for me, you could make a whole record in 6 and 7 hours. I was just like, what are we doing
That's
here?
just the first verse. What are you talking about?
Oh my God. It seriously was one of the most tedious things I've ever done, but I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about living and a little about love.
Well, one of the things,
that's a country music reference.
which is a testament. One of the things is testament to Beth and to Anna Friel, who
Anna
also sings a lot of these aforementioned power ballads. The one thing all the top artists in country music have in common, especially the female artists, is they're incredible singers. I mean, whether you go to Dolly Parton, Barbara Mandrell, I'm still in Gleeland, sorry. Faith Hill, Carrie Underwood, right? You can't think of one that can't sing. Like, which one is it, right? They
I can
all
think of
are
one,
amazing.
but I'm not going to say it.
Well, there's one, and even she's pretty good.
Are you thinking of who I'm thinking
I'm
of?
thinking of who you're thinking about. Yeah, we just won't say that because we'll be killed. But they're incredible singers, and they're rangy, and they're difficult. So they had to tackle these songs. And Anna's an alto, naturally. And she's like, I grew up singing, folk songs with my dad. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm doing Leanne Rimes? Like, what? So it was definitely a challenge that they had to really show up and work their asses off.
Anna really, the amount that Anna worked on this show, I can't say enough how incredible it was to watch her work every day. Like you think like, I don't know anything about acting. You'll see that if you watch the show.
No,
but,
not true.
But I'm telling you, but singing, I thought I knew a lot about, and well, not really. But when Anna, I had to say that in public because she was so incredible, and she sang everything. She sounds incredible, and she's British as hell, And like, not only did she grow up singing folk songs, but like Irish folk songs, right? So
we had to beat the Irish out of her too.
Yeah, you did, and like they really did.
But think about it, right? Bob Dylan's an incredible artist, right? Mm-hmm. Have him sing a Faith Hill song, right? That's what we're doing every week, and you have to do it. Let's go, whatever it takes.
I'd like to think of
and
a better singer.
it's just a huge testament to their work ethic and what they brought.
Well, let's talk a little about the original music, because there are also some great original songs incorporated into that. So what was that process like? Who was writing those? What was that, deciding who was singing what?
The originals.
So, no. I'm like trying not to like bore. I will go on for days. So there's there's a foundational. We got nowhere to be. There's a foundational song when we first started that's very important to the story and the history of the family. No pressure at all. And we needed that written. And I had in my head, for story reasons, it had to have a narrative that was very specific. And we talked a lot about that. For all of the originals, there were story
Absolutely.
refinements, and there were also like tonal things. But then you have like a genius, and you have to let him do his thing too.
The thing about country songs is they're very specific lyrically, right? So to find a hit country song that fits that narrative perfectly is
Oh yeah, and they
challenge.
were like, just so you know, this was the biggest song of all time. What did I say to you? I was like, this has to have been Ring of Fire by the Roman family. Like no pressure, just like
Yeah.
write
So it
something
needs to
that
be
was
a
like
sound like a
for
massive
the
hit.
ages. Yeah.
Because there's no cover that can tell the story, so we had to write it. But again, thankfully, I learned how to write songs in Nashville, and I had a lot of deep friendships and connections with probably all of the biggest songwriters that you can think of in Nashville and country music. So I made a lot of phone calls. I said, guys, I need your help. We need to get in a room and we got to figure this out.
Oh my God!
So
will
it
you
was
say
not
the
just
lyric
me.
for American Cowgirl? Will you just say the lyric?
I don't remember it. That was like 6 months ago.
Red lips, blue jeans.
Oh, yeah.
White pearls. I'm an American cowgirl.
Yeah, that was it.
Don't you want to watch that show? Oh my God!
Well,
he sent that to me, and I was
You
like,
wrote that
But wait, yes, I did.
Oh, I
The
thought
script had American Cowgirl just as a title in there, and I go, that could either be terrible or really great. So let's see what we can come up with. And when we came up with that, red lips, blue jeans, white pearls, I'm like, that's awesome.
And
We'll
then,
go with that.
and meanwhile, as the person who like wrote in a script, she sings her hit from the annals of history, American Cowgirl. Like, I'm like, hell, they'll change that. And then you get this incredible song, and it has a lyric like that. I mean, that's like bucket list for a writer. Like to get to partner with people that are this talented, that come up with things like that make it feel so incredible and real.
It was fun. It was fun to, like I said, go
Red
back to my
lips,
roots in Nashville.
blue
And
jeans.
Nashville is a town built on songs.
Yeah.
And you can feel it when you're there. So it was very cool to integrate that into the show and make it authentic. And Austin's another town like that. I mean, we come here every year for South by, and then let's not forget they're from Austin. The
Their
Roman
family's
family.
in Austin.
This
They're
is not a
staying
Nashville
here.
show, but all the great songwriters and musicians seem to migrate to Nashville, and so that's where we have to go hunt them down. But this is an Austin show, through and through.
That's right. Well, I want to talk a little about casting because we know Beth auditioned 4 times, but I'm curious about the rest of the cast because obviously we have.
I
some
auditioned. I didn't
incredible-
get the part. No.
For Trace.
for Trace's role. You,
I have
you
long
auditioned.
hair.
Yeah, you have the hair. What was the process casting, especially obviously Susan Sarandon and Trace Adkins, who are both icons in their own right? So I'm curious how that came together.
So it was COVID, so casting was over Zoom, unfortunately. But for the Dottie Roman character, who is this larger-than-life, first lady of country music, the queen of country music, we knew it had to be somebody iconic who could carry that weight. I mean, when I see Dream Come True, you guys, Susan Sarandon, wanted to do it. And we met with her on Zoom, and she was like, Susan Sarandon, and so sexy, just sitting in her living room wearing a low shirt, just chilling. And I was sitting up and really nervous. And she was like, I love the script. This character's pretty cool. She was so cool. So that was if she wanted to do it, she was doing it, and it worked out, and it was miraculous and wonderful. Trace, that was we knew we wanted someone authentic who could really sing. There's no one that sings better than Trace Atkins. And he has such a warmth, but also a gravitas. The first time I met him in person, again, the casting was all unfortunately done over Zoom. We met over Zoom. And even they met each other over Zoom and stuff, which kind of sucks. But then we all got to Atlanta, which is where we shot. And he walked into my office and he said, this is the best I can do. Hello, darling. You guys, I almost fainted. He is just dripping with charisma and manliness and awesomeness and the voice. And I'm totally not answering your question about how he's Trace Atkins. Of course we cast him. It just was it just fell into place. It was wonderful.
Were there other country singers that were in your mind when you were kind of putting this together, and other people you were thinking about?
To be honest, not really. We did talk to a couple of other singers for the Albie role.
Right.
And Trace hasn't done a ton of acting before. He's done parts here and there, and this is a significant role.
He's so good at it.
He's so good at it. And he's so, it's a complicated father role. It's inspired by a complicated father role. So I was very specific in sort of what I wanted and was looking for. And he's a very complicated man. Wikipedia him. He's lived. And he was so willing to explore that stuff for story. And he ended up inspiring how we wrote him, because he was so, he's just so cool. And so.
Rode hard? Rode hard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious if, because you said everyone obviously met over Zoom, and that's unfortunate, but the world we live in. So when you did finally see people in person, was there more chemistry reads of people together, or were you like, well, you're already doing it, so hopefully they have chemistry? Because spoiler alert, they do have great chemistry, the whole
And
cast.
when she says we did chemistry reads over Zoom.
Okay.
We did have, because they're a family. I mean,
Which
there's-
works so well, by the way.
I was like, can you really tell?
Awesome.
But you can, there's more than you can see. I mean, it doesn't necessarily give it to you, but you can rule things out.
It's better than nothing. We'll say
It's
that,
better.
which
It's
was
better
our
than
option.
nothing. And you can also look at people and go, they don't look related, or they do. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I wouldn't have seen that, but they kind of have the same nose. I mean, it's a family show. It's about a family, and so they need to feel like family. And I mean, it's crazy. It works.
It works, yeah. I think it was actually really crazy from the get-go. The cast was so together. Like from every little corner, everybody was just like, from the get-go.
Do you remember that first cast dinner?
Yeah.
So we had a
Barely.
cast dinner, and it was, it was like a dinner in a restaurant and thing, and the extended family, and like halfway through dinner, it was just so funny. It was such a stereotype. Someone said like, anybody want to sing a song? And it's like, everyone was like, no. Okay, me first.
Yeah, don't.
And like, we went around, we did family tradition, Hank song family tradition, which is, spoiler, also in the pilot. And we went around, I mean, I was singing, like, it was just, the first night it felt like a family.
Yeah.
It's family sing, like how my family used to all sing. Like,
And my family fights, so we put it.
oh, there's a little fighting on the show too.
You've got everything, you packaged it up. Raw energy.
How much of Beth is in Gigi?
A lot, I think. I'm not an actor, so I can't be like, yes, got it. So I only have two speeds. Either I'm playing my redneck southern aunt, rest in peace, or I'm myself, and that's it. And so a lot, I think. Yeah. I mean, it's just me saying the words, so. Yeah. I have a different hair color.
We also, I mean, I'm not sure if you noticed, but Beth is funny. And Gigi was always funny. Like there were episodes written before we ever met.
Yeah.
But once we met Beth, like you can't not write Gigi funny. And then she would add things and embellish things and ad-lib things, which makes writers crazy, except when they're fucking hilarious, which, I mean, look at her. She's so funny.
I would always get into things with the showrunner and be like, that's not funny. Like, I was so terrible sometimes because I'd be like, let me tell you what you would say. Because I'm Southern, and like I would always
you
be
would
like,
text
"Let
me
tell you
like, what
they
if
would
I did
say."
this? Yeah. I'm like, okay, if that's
I'm like,
think
throw the
that-
word commode in there. It's gonna go. It's like that's real.
But the best casting is always when the actor embodies the character in some way. So it just feels authentic and real. That's what Trace does. That's what Beth does.
Yeah.
It just,
And Anna blew. The thing is, I can't talk enough about Anna. You're like, here she goes again. But Anna was so incredible. Like, I can't even believe it. I learned so much watching her, and she was so deep and so in character, and she cares so much. And she's in accent. And you have to think about that. She's British, and she's doing this Texas Southern accent. And for me, it came really easily because I was like, hi, what's that? Like, I just talked like the way I grew up talking. So, like, I mean, I just can't tell you enough. Like, I get chills.
This is
thinking
exactly
about
what
how-
Gigi would be doing. She would be talking about Nikki.
her sister, yeah. Like, I have two sisters, so.
How much, like you said, it obviously was inspired by some personal things. How much of your own life is put in the script?
Good question.
So, for me, at the heart, the show is about a woman who has had all the expectations in the world put on her by having this larger-than-life family, and she's born with all this talent, and she should be super successful and famous, but she sort of, life gets in the way. She has kids that have needs, and she has parents that have needs, and she finally gets her chance, and she's over 40, and she's afraid it might be too late. And the fact that I have tears in my eyes now tells you, some of me went into that. Mm-hmm. It's very, very personal, and like she's always fighting, and it's an emotional show, guys.
You did it! You should feel very proud of yourself.
I mean, it's a lot of it is personal. A lot of it is crazy and made up. I mean, there's also a lot of wish fulfillment for this woman over 40 who gets like a young hot guy fighting over her with an older hot guy fighting over her with the middle hot guy fighting. I mean, like, it's all, but not necessarily.
That's more my story, actually.
I borrowed that from Adam's life. Yes, yes, but no, a lot of it comes from my personal story, from the other writers, and then eventually from the actors and what they brought in.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little about the story that is in the show and kind of goes throughout it, because no one here has seen it yet.
Oh, yeah.
And we've seen the, extended trailer, but what can you guys say about kind of the journey that these characters go on throughout this season, and what you can kind of tease about that?
Well, I feel like for me, I can't speak for everybody, but it was really emotional because it was like, this show was really interesting. There was a lot going on, and everybody was kind of like flying by the seat of their pants, and we were like getting to know each other, and it was COVID, and like, whoa. Am I okay? What if I knocked my fucking teeth out? That would have been amazing.
That would be awesome.
Anyway, there's no cussing in this show. I can't help but to cuss. Trace got on to me for cussing, actually. He cusses so much. But like, it's like, what was the question? Like what we go through? It's like you really start to like. It's like when you learn a language. It's like you're Swedish, but it's like, do you dream in English? Do you dream in Swedish?
Depends on the day.
There you go.
Did
So
you
it's
start
like
dreaming as Gigi?
you start thinking as Gigi. You start thinking like, well, like you start to become a little bit confused as to what you are and what you do, because it's every day you're this other person, and she's a lot like me, like like when you were talking about being over 40, I'm like, big whoop, like like to me, I'm like, what's the big deal? I don't understand. It's gonna be fine. You're 40, but like, because I am 40 and so 41, but like when you like for it, that's such a Gigi thing to think, and like you really start to like. I don't know. You spend so much time with all this dialogue, and you're learning it, and you're pounding it into you, and all this time thinking like, eventually you just start to think like that person. So, and it's really interesting.
Well, Anna spoke in a character in the studio all the time. She never broke character.
Yeah.
Which was really cool, because she's like, I can't go back.
So committed.
I have to stay here the whole time. And this is method acting, I guess. But
on a more macro level, I had mentioned the original inspiration was the Romanov dynasty as a family of country music stars. And the arc over the season is very much like a royal family in turmoil. Secrets come out. Everybody has to deal with, identity is a big theme. It's like you were raised with a certain role in a family, and now you're an adult. Do you want to define a new role for yourself? And how do you do that? All with a lot of like backstabbing and murder. There's a big murder mystery that plays out throughout the season that impacts everybody. So in terms of everybody's journey, I think with a lot of change and insanity happening around them, where do each of these individuals who are, in the end, parts of a family, where do they end up?
How does the puzzle come together? Mm-hmm. Yeah. For the music side of it, because that is, not just part of the story. It is the story and the music part of it. I'm curious what the toughest song to get the rights to was.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good question. No, that was easy. Like I said, Garth
I
didn't
wonder what
write
the
it,
hardest
so
one
that
to
was
do
easy.
was. Because the rights we had good ways of getting rights.
Or maybe the hardest one that came together, I guess the hardest to come together.
I should say also, one of our EPs is Jason Owen, who's one of the biggest country music managers.
Yeah.
He represents Casey Musgraves, and he's incredible. And so like, oftentimes if there was ever an issue with a song, he could just pick up the phone, which is fantastic.
Well, between him and Adam, they
Yeah,
must know
that's the
the
thing,
entire
I was gonna say.
talk about the royal family of country music.
Again, it usually just comes down to money. Will they do it for our
Right,
budget?
of course,
And then
right.
we have to the hard part is just going back to Fox and going, will you kick in a little more, And
Budget
then
was never
the
a
hardest
problem.
ones are always when there's 50 writers on a song, because there were some songs where the writers are dead, so you're dealing with an estate. Those things are really difficult, but they're not really creative issues. But a lot of country songs are written by one or two guys that I know.
I was gonna
so
say,
it's not that hard,
Yeah.
But creatively, some were difficult for sure. Yeah.
Were there any that you had been a writer on?
No, I just wrote the originals. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I usually. That's too narcissistic to put your own songs
what was-
into.
You've written some great songs.
I'm
so
so
curious.
curious though, now that you asked, what was the hardest song to
song?
come together? Is that a
I think it was How Do I Live?
Great.
Frankly,
How Do I Live?
Frankly, that was
which was a non-negotiable.
and by the way, God, can I say I didn't want to do it because I was like, this is. If you go listen to the original,
Yeah.
obviously it was a huge hit. It's a great song. Leanne is actually a friend and an amazing
Still
person.
not Patsy Cline.
The song did not age well. It did not age well when you go listen to it. And I'm just like,
There was a
crap.
difference of opinion about whether the song aged well.
Yeah, well, the production. I'm talking about production now. And then the second problem I had. So the first problem is I have to make the production feel like it's coming out today because the show is set today. So how do you produce this song? First of all, like cool for today, but I also had to do a flashback version towards an original, which
Yeah.
if you see it, you'll know what I'm saying. There's another version that's supposed to be older, but not as old as when it originally came out. So I had to like create
didn't
some
make life
in
easy
between.
for him.
Then I had to make it a duet. That song's not a duet.
I know.
That I was like, oh my gosh, and really,
had to be that song,
Yeah, it was just really hard. So that one gave me fits. But it turned out great. I'm very happy with how it turned out. But I like a challenge, But
Yeah.
You worked your ass off. Like you really
Yeah.
turn it out. You did a great job. You did a lot of work.
yeah, that was a lot.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well,
Thank
thanks
you.
for putting your
I'd
work.
also like to say congratulations to you, Elizabeth. I just think it's important to say it's like you did it. Your dream is like alive, and it must be so surreal to see like all these things in your head come to life. Be like, I wanted to have a blue wall, and then you walk into the set and there's like a blue wall, and you're like, oh my god, like that must be crazy.
It's crazy.
You know.
It's on the necklace.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Totally crazy. It is surreal, and it's magical, and I'm so appreciative
It's really cool.
of getting to work with people like this, and Susan Sarandon. I mean, what?
Sarah and
It's
Dawn. Yeah.
completely crazy.
I'm still thinking about what were the hard songs.
Yeah, I
know.
want
We
another
did
one.
some-
I want another
we
one
took
because
some pop songs. So by the way,
Oh, yeah.
this show is for everyone. This isn't just for people who like country music, and I think that's an important
Yeah.
distinction. But the way to achieve that is to also pick songs that maybe somebody who's never listened to country music will know and love, and then you make it in a country way. And then my goal is maybe you didn't like country music before you start watching this, and you're going to come out liking it. Right, and we want some converts. So we do have some pop songs. And I'm like, what are we doing right now? Trying to make this a pop song, a country song.
But they're so
I'll just say
fun.
it.
it's really cool. Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it.
you can
say yours.
share
I know
one
what one you're
song.
thinking
Share one
of.
song?
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
It's so good. Say
No,
it.
no, you say it.
Which one are you gonna sing?
Gaga.
No, no, no.
Oh no.
Well,
No,
what
the song,
Gaga?
I was like, okay. I was like, what is
Lizzo.
happening right now? No, no, I didn't. It was watermelon.
did Watermelon Sugar.
I was like,
Harry
what
Styles.
are you
Nice.
doing right now?
That's
So good now.
It was crazy.
It's so good. Isn't
Yeah.
it good though?
I was just like, what is going to happen?
Yeah.
It's so funny. Have you seen it?
I love it.
It's really cool.
hilarious.
Have you seen? You haven't seen.
I haven't seen
I
that
just-
part
it was-
yet.
Oh,
you better
did you
send
know
that.
we were doing
Episode 2.
Watermelon Sugar?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
You better send that over to me. I want to see it.
So good.
We're going to open this up to some questions if anyone has any. I want to start. Let's go to the guy in the back first.
First, Beth, I can hear you talk forever. It reminds me of growing up in a small town. And so I'm glad that the accent will be real in the show.
Thank you.
I did have a question from a writing standpoint for the covers. Were you able to write towards certain songs that were going to bring out the story? Or
Yeah.
did you have to go at it backwards? Like, oh, we did this song. So
It's a great
Good question.
question. Most of the time, they're organic to story. So, for example, is it really okay for me to say songs? I try to forget because I
Yeah,
want you to
you're good.
experience it for the
We
first
got
time.
that
So,
okay.
for
You're good.
example, one of my very favorite songs is "Cowboy Take Me Away" by Chicks. I guess they're now the Chicks.
Yes.
Chicks on Speed. You remember that band?
It's to me that song is all of, and again speaking as like a woman of a certain age who experienced that song for the first time as a younger woman and now is all about wanting to be free. And Nikki sings the song in a moment where she is just struggling with so many constraints on her. That's just an example. But so most of the time we would have the story and then the songs would kind of emerge. There were certain songs though that we just liked the songs so we
Yeah,
wanted
we'd
to.
write to them, but I think most of the time I want the writers to put at least a placeholder in, like
Yeah.
put a song in
Yeah.
that works for you story wise, and then I will either go, okay, that works,
Yeah.
or I'll go, okay, I get what you want. Let me go find one that works. And it's a 50-50 kind of thing that but I'll always start trying to make the song work that they envisioned in the writer's room, because that's usually the most organic.
What else? What's next? Yeah, go ahead.
These are smart people out here we got.
So first of all, I'm really excited, and thank you for giving like meaty teasers that we can get excited about. So my question is a general acting question that kind of touches on directing and story. So I know you mentioned, Beth, that this is a newer experience for you on the acting side. And Trace also, you said, had some experience but not as much. So, and I know that TV often has different directors coming in for different episodes.
Yeah.
So how did you sort of support the cast and help guide them and make sure that they had, someone to touch base on to really find their characters? Did you have an acting coach you worked with? What was sort of your process to make sure everyone felt supported in building their process?
Great
Want me to
question.
start?
Oh, if you want, yeah, you go ahead.
Before we ever started shooting, we spent time together in Atlanta, and we, the leadership team, felt like it was important to make it feel like a family. So we spent time together, like we had dinner, and we did, which apparently is not a normal thing on a TV show, like really devoting that kind of time and talking together. Remember those dinners we had?
Yeah.
And I think that was important. There was some acting coaching, but I think, they just did a lot of work. They worked really, really hard. Do I have amnesia of like?
No, there was. I really feel like the answer to that is like, I can't explain it. We leaned on each other a lot.
Yeah.
Like if I had a question, I would just ask. I'll tell you a story that's amazing, but I think it's amazing. But it's like, I would just, if I needed to know, I asked. Like I can only speak for myself. If like we had a question, they created a really open space that we could say how we were feeling. If we didn't feel like our character would say something, if we didn't feel like it made sense, if we needed help making something to make sense, there was always someone there to answer the question.
Yeah. Oh.
So that was really cool.
We also, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
We had a producing director, which is a director you hire to be there as a consistent
Wait, is that
presence
Chris?
throughout. Chris.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was going to say on
Oh my
just a
God.
purely logistical level, not the personal experience
Yeah.
side. In TV, because you have different directors all the time, you need to have a singular voice, and that can be a producing director or the showrunner, as we call it, might be on set, and you can always go to that showrunner. In a movie, the director is the showrunner and does all that. But in TV, because you're getting bounced around from different directors, you have one person there that you can go
We
to.
had Gridsmer. His name was Chris Gridsmer.
He's great.
He is hilarious. Like he's obsessed with my nephew. I can't explain it. But like he called him my husband because we're from Arkansas. But like, he loved it. But
That's funny.
He was great. Everything that we needed. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. Gridsmer was.
And the first few episodes, we were there
Yeah, y'all were there
the whole time. Really just making sure that we got the character, everybody got the character, because they're complicated, hopefully multidimensional human beings. It's just hard to understand just from reading a script. So we would have to talk, and Anna's process is really deep. She goes real. We had so many conversations about. Fortunately, I do understand Nikki pretty well, but
That's
we
the
had
good
a
thing.
lot of.
Most actors are very low maintenance, and they don't need. I'm kidding. That's just a bad actor joke.
Everybody was on this show. I feel like there were some people that you were like, what? But like everyone was so like low maintenance. I'm on that team, so it's like outside looking in. I'm like, I felt great. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, I feel like it was pretty.
The other thing is having like a Susan Sarandon around who has.
Oh my God.
She is truly a master of the craft. I'm not being hyperbolic at all. Like on our show, she's the queen of country music, but like in the world, she's just the queen. Like she's so talented, and she would just read a line. And she also, here's a little secret. Writers don't always love when actors are like, sorry, Beth. Writers don't always love when actors are like, I'm not sure I love that line. What if I said it like this?
Oh, I don't care if you don't love it.
We always listen. No, we always listen. But when Susan calls you and is like, I've been thinking about this scene, you're like, what do you think? And it's always like you learn something. And so she is Mama, and she was Mama on set.
Yeah, and then I think also
I have to tell you the Susan Sarandon story.
You do have to tell us.
I have to tell you the story. Okay, so it was like third day of filming or something. I was scared to death, scared to death. And when I get nervous, I don't know if you knew this or not, I just talk my ass off. So I was just talking. And I thought I made a mistake. And I was like, oh my God, I wasn't lined up it's for continuity or whatever it is. And then Susan, because it's the end of the day and it was like last take. And I was like, oh my God, I wasn't in the same place. And she just went, shut the fuck up. Without moving her mouth. And I think another person would have been like, oh my God. But I was like, that is such good advice. Yeah. Like I was like, and I swear to God, I was like, oh my God, just shut up. If they don't say anything, then don't say anything. And I was like, Susan. And so I embroidered her this thing that said, shut the fuck up on it. But it was like the best advice I could have gotten from
Master.
From a master. And I was like, absolutely shut the fuck up.
I think too, when you have, it's important on a TV show that, what we call the first on the call sheet sets the tone, right? And there's a lot of shows I've been on where the first set the wrong tone, and it creates a lot of problems. But when you have a first that sets the right tone, that trickles down through the entire cast. And then you kind of know you're going to be okay. Because it's hard making a TV show, and it's even harder making a musical. It's like making 2 shows at once. It's brutal. And people don't know how hard it is to make a musical. I'm like, let's make a musical. This is a great idea. I'm like, you have no idea.
It's a whole other
idea.
level.
Yeah.
It really
It's
is.
2 jobs. It's 2
It's brutal for the cast because they finish shooting 12-hour day and they go to the studio and have to sing for 6 hours. Then they have choreography rehearsal before they start shooting the next. And they have to learn their lines. It is crazy. It is really, really hard. So kudos to you guys.
I think that is a great note to end on. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.